Hi, and glad to have you back. In this tutorial, what we're going to do is to create a nice little water shader in Blender. So this is our water shader. This is what we're going to be creating. I'm actually using the Eevee cycles because somehow it's a bit performant, but you can use any render engine you want. Eventually, I'm going to switch this over to cycles so that we'll be able to actually see a much more realistic render of that same object, which is water we're going to be creating here. So the first thing I did, I've opened my web browser and I've actually searched for some water images like that so we can have an idea of what we're going to be creating. Now the ocean is different from rivers, is different from sea, is different from a glass of water, but water is still water and the properties are quite similar. Now we can actually see this very noisy kind of ocean. We can actually see this clear kind of smooth blurry water surface. Now water is also going to have some physical characteristics like the index of refraction, and we could also see this example here of this water with some person swimming. So there's a base here and it's being refracted, right? So something we should also note is the value for the IOR, or index of refraction of water, which is 1.33. That's some water physics, and water is also transmissive, and you can actually see, pass through water. If you have water in a glass cup, you can actually see the walls or objects around, just like this one. So let's go ahead and see how we can set this up in Blender. So I've fired up Blender and we're ready to go. So the first thing I'll do is to create our basic setup for our project, and in every project I always repeat the same process. So let's add a icosphere. So I'll use Shift A and go to Mesh, and let's add an icosphere because it has a lot of opportunity to add very smooth detail. I'll set this to about 6, and I'll set the radius to about 2 so we can just have it slightly large like that. And I'll right click and shade smooth and shade auto smooth. I'll go to object, go to apply all the transforms so I can zero out the location, rotation, scale, and apply any of the properties I've changed on this object. I'll just call this water test. Since this is water, I also want to add a nice little plane surface so we can also test this. So for the plane, let's go to add mesh and let's go to plane. I'll press the S key and just scale this so we have a large, nice little water body like that. I'll hide our water tests. I'll just call that our water plane. And I'll add some detail to this object. So I'll switch to edit mode, right click on the object and subdivide about 4 times so we can actually have more vertices. I think this is a good subdivision, so I'll leave it like that. What we can also do if we wanted was select some of these vertices and move them up, but I won't be doing that, but it really helps to add or sell some of that illusion like that. But let's just leave it like that, nothing too super complex. We can always simulate that using a bump. So I'll go back to object mode and I'll right click and shade smooth and shade auto smooth so we can just smoothen out that surface. So this is going to be our tests for our water surface, and this is going to be for our water. We will actually add the same material. And speaking of that, let's add some material here. So I'll go off to materials and click new, and I'll give the shader the name of the material I want to create. I want to create water, so I'll just call this water matte. Oops, that's not how you spell water. I'll just call this water underscore matte for water material, and I'll add the same material to the plane and the water. So I'm going to just separate them. I'll have this on top and I'll have the water just floating right there. It's totally awesome. So I'll tear up a new view, and here I'll set this to the shader editor. And now if I'm on the water test object, I'll just click this drop down and apply the same water material. So the plane and the sphere have the same material assigned. So I'll turn off the plane for now and turn it off on the render so we can just have our water material. And what I'll do is to go over to the render engine. I'll send this to cycles because it's more realistic. I'll set this to GPU compute, and I'll leave everything like that and just drag this, open this here, and I'll go down to film and I'll set this to transparent. So what we can also do is just quickly save this. I'm just going to go to File, Save, and I'll save this in our project folder where we have our materials. So I'll go to our course files, create a new folder. I'll call that 06, and I'll call that water material. And in our water material folder, we'll just call that water underscore 01, like that, and we'll save this file. So this is our first version. As we progress, I will try as much as I can to save the steps. So that's going to be it for this lesson. In our next lesson, we'll start setting up the properties of this water material. See you guys in the next lesson.